It's time to destroy this thing once and for all. I kneel down. I place the hand on the ground. I raise my axe above my head, and I say a prayer to Tiamat. And I bring the axe down and chop my hand off, put Vecna's hand on, use my healing pole to heal, and teleport out. I'm sorry, it was just business.
You heard that correctly. I am the proud new owner of the Hand of Vecna, and I have to say, it's been a little bit of an adjustment. I'm not quite attuned to it yet, so editing these videos is taking a little bit of time, but hey, it's worth it. But in all seriousness, I am super excited about this project in particular, and for the first half of this video, I'm just going to show you the general steps of how I got to this endpoint, and I'm not going to go too into detail. The reason being is because I was actually following a video from another creator named Henry Purnell, and I'm going to include the link to his video down in the description. But as you've been seeing in these past few clips, I was able to create my own design by sketching it out in Procreate and bringing it over to Illustrator. That way I ended up with a much cleaner design, and I was able to generate these dotted lines in order to give myself a bit of a cleaner roadmap of where each stitch should go. Which actually brings me to one of the first announcements that I want to make in this video. Guild of Gluttony now has a Patreon. I wanted a place to provide exclusive content for the supporters of this channel, and actually one of the first pieces of content is going to be the pattern that I'm using here to make this oven mitt. We've also just recently launched a Discord and a Minecraft server that are exclusive to the Guild of Gluttony as well. So if you're looking to connect with other culinary nerds, or I like to call us culinerds, check out those links down in the description. So I forgot to mention earlier that this is the first time that I had ever embroidered anything ever in my life. So when it comes to new hobbies, I like to dive in head first, directly into the deep end, clearly. But I knew from the get-go that this would definitely be a learning experience, and I knew that the end result would be pretty cool. What I didn't know was how hard it is to thread a needle and how many times you would have to do it throughout the process. And speaking of the process, this project alone took me about 15 to 20 hours. I actually ended up breaking a couple of needles, and I poked my hand so many times. But none of that discouraged me even a little bit. I enjoyed every single second that I was working on this project, and I truly do think that I have a new hobby now. I think anything that I work on after this has got to be a cakewalk comparatively. It's actually pretty funny because my sister has just recently taken up the hobby as well, and so I was able to bond with her over it and actually ask her for some tips. And also, the very day that I decided that I wanted to try my hand at it, I found out that my sister-in-law was picking it up as well. It was just a little bit awkward when both of them asked me, hey, what project are you working on? It wasn't really as simple as saying, oh, I'm doing the Hand of Vecna on an oven mitt. I'm sure all of us D&D players have had a time where we want to dive deeper into talking about the subject, whether it's talking about lore or your home adventures or whatever, but then you just realize that you're speaking complete nonsense to anybody that is not as deeply ingrained in the hobby as you are. I'm just very thankful that I am surrounded by people that love me enough to just smile and nod their head whenever they ask me a question that they do not realize yet that they don't want to know the answer to, because it's either convoluted, kind of weird, or a bit of both. But that's the beauty of having a YouTube channel that is dedicated to both Dungeons and Dragons and food. I know that I have a very small target demographic, but I know that those of you who are here really do care. And for that, I thank you. So once I finished the outline, it was time to start filling in with a bit more color. I made the decision to just fill in the nails and the bones because filling in all the rest of it would have taken way too much time on a project that had already taken up a lot of time. But again, it was really therapeutic, and while I was working on it, I was actually able to watch some cooking videos to learn a few tips and tricks that would help me when it comes to making the dish for this video, which is Arkhan the Cruel's Flame Roasted Halfling Chili. About a day or two before I rolled to see what recipe I was going to get for my next video, Annalise had asked me which recipe I was the most excited to make, and my immediate answer was Arkhan's chili. When I had read through it, it just intrigued me with all the different spices that are included, and with the character of Arkhan, I knew that there was a lot that I could do craft-wise to make this video really fun. So the first thing that I decided to do for the chili was to make my own tomato puree out of fresh tomatoes rather than just buying it canned, and this process was made all the easier thanks to my new set of knives that were given to me by my dear friend, Secret Santa, and supporter of the show, Emma. Thank you so much, Emma. So the process of making the tomato puree was actually a lot simpler than I was expecting. You pretty much just blend up the ingredients and then cook out all of the water until you're left with a little more like a paste consistency. But I did find in a few places online that it's helpful to use the secret ingredient of a bell pepper to give it a little bit more flavor, and I'm sure glad that I did. This was about the time that I decided to take a real risk by putting a white oven mitt next to a boiling, bubbling pot of red liquid. But soon after the heroism spell that was cast on me wore off, I decided to put a lid on it. The recipe book calls for 4 pieces of bacon, and based on my counting here, this is about 4 pieces. I mean, it's important to remember that this is a dragonborn making it, so 4 pieces of bacon to them is closer to like 6 or 8 to us. I just like to apply that same logic to every recipe that I cook that includes bacon. Sue me. So I cook this in the Dutch oven in order to get all the crispy bits, and then shortly thereafter I add these diced onions. The beauty of a chili is that it's kind of just throwing a bunch of stuff into one pot, letting it simmer, and then eating it. And also the fact that leftover chili can sometimes even taste better than it did the day that you made it is true witchcraft. I love leftovers, but the leftovers that get you excited to eat it before you've even eaten the original dish is something special. The technique that you're seeing here is actually to help with the texture of the chili. This is something that I also like doing with like a potato soup or even a chowder, where you blend up some of the ingredients while leaving a bit of a reserve on the side. That way you get a smooth, creamy base and have some of the chunks throughout. As I briefly mentioned before, this chili is a symphony of spices, and that's where it really shines, because it's a really in-your-face flavor and really intense without actually being too much, which I feel like is a really hard balance to get most of the time. I will say though that the road to the final product is a little bit sludgy, I suppose. It's really not the most appetizing looking thing until you get to the very end, honestly. And even at that, you might not say that it is the most gorgeous thing you've ever eaten, but it's a chili. It just has to taste good. After simmering for a while, the tomato puree was starting to thicken and was about ready to add to everything else. I used the empty kidney bean can to measure out how much I needed, so this is not a shot of me using canned puree after I spent all that time making a homemade one. As for the ground turkey, I was kind of expecting to have to cook it beforehand and then add it, but it said to just let it all simmer together and it would kind of break apart in that process. And then all that was left for the chili was to add the kidney beans. But another beautiful thing about chili is the endless number of options that allow you customization for your own bowl. And something that shocked me was that people tend to eat cinnamon rolls with their chili. I don't know if this is just a regional thing, but if you do it, or if you happen to know where this originated, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Again, this was just a very fascinating phenomenon to me, and I knew that I had to try it. Annalise tells me that apparently I have tried it before, but I don't remember that at all, so I'm treating this as if it was the first time I had ever tried it to see what my final judgment is. And as always, we send everything off with a wave and a kiss and wish it well. And sorry, there actually was one more step to the chili, was to add the bacon. You don't want to add this too early or else it'll just get soggy. Adding it later keeps it crispy. The book says that you can use it as garnish, but it's just kind of understood in our household that we're all gonna use bacon whenever we get the chance, so I figured just skip the middleman. But again, I wanna know what y'all prefer to put in your chili. Do you like Fritos? Do you like sour cream? Cheese? Those are all the things I like, but what about you? Let me know in the comments. And now, using the hand of Vecna, I am able to magically extract the rolls of cinnamon from the 9 hells of our oven. And then I shot one of my favorite time lapses to date. This is just a really fun one to watch. And then before adding all the mix-ins, I wanted to taste just the base chili to get my thoughts. And of course, being careful to cool it off, because it is literally flame roasted in the name. And as you can see here, even though I like to add in a lot of stuff, I was impressed with just the chili on its own. As I had mentioned, a dollop or 2 or 3 of sour cream is kind of the perfect number for me. Being careful to make it look as good as I can for the beauty shots, and then topping it with some cheddar cheese. And we later added Fritos, but I forgot to get that before getting the beauty shots. And now for the taste test. Okay, I'm gonna do this really quick. I added a lot more cheese because that's more accurate to who I am and the things I like, so. That's so good. All the different spices really make it, I think, special as a chili. I don't think I've ever had anything quite like it. And now I will try it with the cinnamon roll. We'll see how this goes. And be expecting a future food fights about this potential monstrosity. If you like this kind of thing, let me know. Also, I'm on the floor because the lighting is bad above me, so. How it weirdly works, especially because this is kind of a sweeter chili. It's got the cocoa powder, the cinnamon, the brown sugar, and a lot of those flavors really work well with this. So, always sniffing around trying to get some. Anyway, I'm just gonna go eat the rest of this. This is one of the best. I feel like I say that about every recipe, but
One of the best recipes from the cookbook so far?